Okay, so now we have the superficial front line and the superficial back line. Now we're going to look at the lateral line, the line that goes up the side of the body. The lateral line in our evolutionary history, if you look at the lateral line of a fish, a shark, for instance, can feel along its lateral line. Those are very, very sensitive motion sensors right along the lateral line of some fish, and they can sense vibration. Now we, as human beings, have concentrated all that vibratory sensitivity into one organ along our lateral line. But even though we don't have vibration sensors down our side, the lateral line does have a myofascial reality in the body, and here we go. So if we look at where the lateral line comes on a human being, it really originates in two places: at the base of the first metatarsal on the inside of the middle of the foot, and the base of the fifth metatarsal at the outside of the middle of the foot. So starting from the inside, if we put on the peroneus longus muscle to its attachment there on the first metatarsal base, and we bring that up here, and then I'm going to use two for this one for a reason you'll see in a minute. The peroneus brevis attaches to the outside of the fifth metatarsal base. So you see we're really starting from two places. Both of those muscles go behind the lateral malleolus of your ankle, where they're also held in by a retinaculum. And although the brevis stops here halfway up, what we're really talking about fascially is that the myofascia and the fascial compartment is the whole lateral compartment of the leg. So we're going to carry both of them up here to the fibular head, where that myofascial compartment has a connection forward through something called the anterior ligament of the head of the fibula, which you can see here in this slide. So that carries us still up the lateral line, still pretty much in a straight line, and there, with that anterior ligament of the head of the fibula, we connect into everybody's old friend, the iliotibial band. The iliotibial band goes up the, just put these here to keep them here. The iliotibial band goes up the side of the leg, widening as it goes, and cups. I'll just kind of stick it together here because it's one long sheet. It's widening just like the Achilles tendon and getting up here to cup the greater trochanter and help to hold that into the socket. The fascia opens up and spreads into a Y here, and many muscles are attaching to it. The tensor fasciae lata here, the northern fibers, all right, the superior fibers of the gluteus maximus attach here from the ilium down. And of course the gluteus medius would be here in the middle. I don't have enough gauze to get across here, but you can see this kind of Y deltoid of the hip arrangement here. And so here we are now out at the anterior superior spine and the posterior superior spine of the iliac bone. Now, if we were to keep going in the same direction, we'd have to keep going out that way, see? So here comes our next fudge factor. The fudge factor on the lateral line is that it's not so much of a line as a basket weave. And what we're going to see here is the next set of muscles goes across in another direction. Here is the fibers of the internal oblique muscles. You can see on the anatomy slide there, and coming from the anterior superior spine, the fibers of the external oblique, obviously external to the internal oblique, coming over it, and they form an X here along the side of the body. So if you look at this X here, I'll show you on my body here, it's going right through your waist. And if you reach and grab around to what's left of your waist, you can feel out here on the side the external oblique going this way, and if you grab a little deeper and grab onto it, you'll feel underneath that external oblique the internal oblique, and they're forming an X. So if you look at this line from where we started down at the foot up to here, we started with muscles that came from the foot around the outside of the leg, up here to the fibular head, across to the iliotibial band, widening out to the anterior spine and the posterior superior spine, and now winding back this way. Now, yes, I know it doesn't follow the Anatomy Train's rules, but it does form a kind of basket weave, and it keeps going with this basket weave. If we look here, what kind of muscle would be going this way? Well, it's the internal intercostals are arranged between the ribs at an angle like this, same as the internal oblique. And the external intercostals are coming over the top of that, coming back in this direction. I'm going to hook it around the scapula here because I'm kind of stuck with the shoulder. But you can see that you still have this oblique arrangement here with the external and internal intercostals. Here's the external intercostals, here's the internal intercostals, just the same as we had the external obliques and the internal obliques. So we're continuing this kind of cross-hatched basket weave, inside-outside formula as we go up the torso. So we continue this interweaving kind of tensegrity arrangement around the ribs, going both directions. So it's a multitude of X's going up through here until we get to the top of the ribs underneath the shoulder. We're not really including the shoulder here. And we look at how does this X express itself in the neck. We have one very, very deep leg of the X way underneath there, in which this part of the leg of the X is the anterior scalene, and this part of the leg of the X is the internal, the superior oblique muscle, the suboccipital muscles. But this is very deep, and this is going to become part of our deep front line. So I'm going to continue. There is an X on top of this. The first part of this X is the splenius capitis, which really comes from over here on the spinous processes and comes right up onto the mastoid process just behind the sternocleidomastoid. And so that's going to take us to the top of that one. I'll just trim that. And the other one on the outside, which is once again our friend, the sternocleidomastoid, coming up onto the skull here, same as it did before. So what you can see if you look at the lateral line is a kind of basket weave or tensegrity back and forth of the elastic lines this way, 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 this way. It's a woven thing that comes all the way down until you get to this strong band, and then it goes down to the leg, as we said before. But if you look at the movement here of what happens on your lateral movement, because every time you walk, you're doing lateral movement. Every time you swum as a fish, you were doing lateral movement. And this weave that goes across here limits that lateral movement as you swing back and forth this way. Okay, so that's how the lateral line is almost more a container for movement than a creator of movement. So from the inside and the outside edge of the foot, the lateral line goes behind the ankle, up the leg on the peroneals, up the outside of the thigh on the iliotibial band, crossing the waist with the abdominals, the ribs with the intercostals, and the neck with the splenius and the sternocleidomastoid, all together forming a basket weave on the outside edge of the body.